There is a secret buried about 6 inches beneath the soil of my vegetable garden. It costs absolutely nothing and takes me less than 3 minutes to prepare. My neighbors honestly thought I had lost my mind when they saw me doing it. They watched me walk out of my kitchen, holding a small bowl of what looked like waste, and bury it right next to my prize-winning tomato plants. But what they didn't know, and what most garden centers don't want you to realize, is that this simple kitchen waste is acting like a powerful biological time release system. It creates nutrient-rich fertilizer directly in the root zone of my plants, completely for free. Within 7 days of adding it to the soil, my plants showed a noticeable surge in growth that synthetic fertilizers simply can't match. No measuring scoops, no chemical blue crystals in watering cans, and no spending $20 on something the earth already knows how to produce. You see, this isn't some trendy internet hack. This is raw, practical survival logic. If you look back at the victory gardens of the 1940s, or farmers surviving the Great Depression, you won't find plastic bottles of synthetic nitrogen anywhere. They didn't have the luxury of buying commercial soil amendments. Instead, they relied on the closed-loop systems of nature. They understood a simple truth we've largely forgotten: waste isn't really waste. It is just the blueprint for the next harvest, waiting to be unlocked. But sometime in the mid-20th century, that traditional wisdom began to fade. After World War II, large chemical companies that had been producing explosives shifted into agriculture. They needed new markets, so they pivoted towards synthetic fertilizers and industrial farming inputs. They launched large-scale marketing campaigns to convince farmers and home gardeners that growing food required lab-made products. The focus shifted away from soil biology, which is naturally self-sustaining, and towards soil chemistry, which is commercially driven. They needed people to believe that fertility comes in a plastic bag with a barcode. Because the reality is simple, no company profits when you grow healthy food using what you already have at home. So what exactly is this $0 solution? I call it the holy trinity of homemade fertility. It consists of 3 extremely common items you're probably already throwing away. Use coffee grounds, dried banana peels, and crushed eggshells. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Most people know these are generally good for soil, but simply tossing a raw banana peel onto your garden bed doesn't do much on its own. In fact, it can attract fruit flies, roaches, and rodents. The real benefit comes when these ingredients are prepared and combined properly, allowing them to break down in a more controlled way and become usable by the soil ecosystem. Let's break down why this works and why it can compete with many store-bought fertilizers. Synthetic fertilizers act like a quick surge of nutrients for your plants. The roots get an immediate boost of soluble nitrogen, which can lead to fast but sometimes weaker growth if overused. In many cases, those nutrients also wash away quickly with rain, leaving the soil depleted again. Over time, this can reduce soil life and make plants more dependent on repeated inputs. It creates a cycle of ongoing purchasing. Even though the soil itself is naturally capable of regeneration, our kitchen scrap trinity works differently. Banana peels are rich in potassium and phosphorus, which support water regulation and overall plant resilience. Coffee grounds provide a slow release of nitrogen and help support microbial activity in the soil. Eggshells are primarily calcium carbonate, supplying calcium, an important element for strong plant structure. Calcium helps support healthy growth and can reduce common issues like blossom end rot in tomatoes and peppers. When combined, these materials don't just feed the plant directly, they support the soil ecosystem itself, nourishing the microbes that work alongside plant roots to improve overall soil health. Here is the exact method to turn this everyday kitchen waste into a simple, nutrient-rich soil mix. Step 1. Stop throwing away your eggshells. But don't just crush them raw. Rinse them, then place them in the oven for about 10 minutes at 200 degrees Fahrenheit, about 95 degrees Celsius. This helps fully dry them and makes them easier to grind into a fine powder. Once cooled, crush them into a fine dust. Step 2. Save your morning coffee grounds, but make sure they dry completely. Spread them on paper or a tray for a day or two. Wet coffee grounds can clump and develop mold, while dry grounds mix more evenly into soil. Step 3. Take your banana peels and chop them into small pieces. For faster breakdown, you can also dry them in the sun until they become dark and brittle, then crush them. When you combine these 3 prepared ingredients, you create a simple, slow-release mix of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, along with calcium and trace nutrients that support soil health. Now, how do you apply it to get that rapid growth within about a week? You don't just sprinkle it on top of the soil. That is not the most effective method. You want to place it directly where the roots will grow. If you're planting something new, dig your hole about 6 inches deeper than usual. Add 2 generous tablespoons of this dry mixture to the bottom of the hole. Cover it with a thin layer of soil, about ½ inch, and then place your plant on top. If your plants are already established, dig a narrow trench, a few inches away from the main stem. Place the mixture inside and cover it back up. There is one important rule you must follow. Do not add meat, grease, dairy, or heavily salted foods to this mix or into your garden soil. You're not creating compost for everything. You're building a controlled plant-focused system. Animal-based and oily materials break down differently and can create imbalances in the soil that may harm plant roots or attract pests. Keep everything plant-based, dry, and simple, and the system works effectively. Within several days of root contact, soil microbes begin breaking down the organic material and making nutrients available to the plant. Over time, you'll notice visible changes: deeper green leaves, stronger stems, and more vigorous growth. And when harvest time comes, the difference in yield can be noticeably higher compared to untreated soil. What you're really doing is working with natural soil processes instead of relying entirely on external inputs. When you apply this in your own garden, it is not just about saving money. It is about using resources already available to you. And when you share this with others who grow food, you're helping spread a more self-sufficient approach to gardening. You're reducing dependence on external products and bringing more control back to the soil itself. If you want to continue learning these methods, stay tuned for the next one, where I'll show a traditional watering technique that improves garden efficiency without relying heavily on irrigation systems.